Watch this for 30 minutes and you'll be dangerously smart. It's that simple. By dedicating just half an hour of your time to this presentation, you are on the verge of acquiring a profound and truly dangerous form of intelligence. This isn't the superficial intelligence one gains from academic studies or merely reading books. It's not about memorizing facts or acing exams. Instead, we're delving into a unique kind of acumen, a sharp and intuitive understanding of the world and the people within it. This is the sort of intelligence that subtly shifts the dynamics of any room you enter, making others feel a slight, unidentifiable unease, not because you are threatening, but because your presence implies a deeper level of perception. This transformative insight will empower you to discern the genuine intentions and actions of individuals, seeing beyond the polite facades and carefully constructed words they present. You'll develop an acute ability to perceive the unspoken truths and underlying motivations that drive human behavior. Once you possess this heightened awareness, you will find yourself impervious to deception, immune to manipulation, and fundamentally liberated from the control of others. Your perception will be so finely tuned that you'll effortlessly cut through pretense and cunning. Consider the vast majority of people. They navigate through existence as if in a perpetual state of semi-consciousness. They readily accept situations and statements at their most superficial level, rarely questioning the deeper reality. They unquestioningly believe whatever narratives are presented to them, absorbing information without critical scrutiny. For these individuals, the world functions precisely as they were instructed it should, conforming to the neat, often simplistic, rules they learned. Consequently, they often spend years, even decades, grappling with a profound sense of confusion, wondering why their expectations repeatedly fall short, why outcomes consistently diverge from what they believe should happen. The underlying cause for this pervasive confusion is remarkably straightforward. They lack 7 crucial pieces of information, 7 fundamental shifts in perspective that will utterly transform their perception of reality. Once these pivotal mental shifts are ingrained within your cognitive framework, you will evolve into an entirely new individual, fundamentally different from your former self. You will effortlessly detect intricate patterns that remain invisible to others. You will possess the uncanny ability to foresee potential outcomes, predicting events long before the average person even registers their possibility. You will grasp the complex web of motivations that drive people, motivations that most others are utterly oblivious to. This heightened state of awareness and predictive capability is precisely what makes you dangerous. Not in any physically violent sense, but rather in a formidable intellectual capacity. You become dangerous because you are no longer a pawn in anyone's game. You cannot be easily tricked or deceived. The standard tactics of manipulation and control, which prove so effective on the unsuspecting masses, will simply cease to work on you. Your mind will become an impenetrable fortress against such attempts. Those individuals who thrive by exerting control over others, who profit from manipulating the less discerning, absolutely detest when someone develops this particular brand of penetrating intelligence. For them, it signifies the obsolescence of their well-practiced deceits and schemes. Their tricks, once so potent, will lose all efficacy. Before we proceed further into these crucial insights, I must issue a significant warning. The 7 mental shifts you are about to experience are entirely permanent. Once your eyes are open to the realities I am about to unveil, there is no reverting to your previous state of ignorance. You will be unable to unsee what has been revealed. The path back to a state of naivety will be irrevocably closed. It will be impossible for you to feign ignorance about the true mechanisms of how the world truly functions. However, this profound knowledge, while liberating, comes with an inherent cost. You will likely experience a sense of increased isolation, feeling as though you communicate in a different lexicon than the majority of people around you. You will begin to perceive unsettling truths and uncomfortable realities that, once recognized, cannot be forgotten or dismissed. Therefore, if your desire is to preserve your current innocence, if you wish to maintain your belief in the inherent goodness of humanity, and the fundamental fairness of the world, I urge you to stop watching this video right now. Return to your previous activities, your illusions undisturbed. But if you are genuinely prepared to perceive reality with unwavering clarity, if you are truly ready to comprehend the intricate rules of the game being played, then I implore you to continue watching. Because over the course of these next 30 minutes, the very structure of your brain will undergo a profound transformation. And by the time this journey concludes, you will emerge as someone truly, indeed, dangerously intelligent. The first shift: words are not truth. Let us commence with the very first, and arguably the most crucial, of these transformative mental shifts. This particular insight serves as the bedrock, the fundamental principle upon which all subsequent understandings will be built. It is also the shift that most individuals resist with the fiercest determination, precisely because it shatters a deeply cherished illusion, a belief they desperately wish to uphold. Here then is the stark reality. People, more often than not, do not truly mean what they say. This isn't to imply that everyone is a deliberate liar or possesses malicious intent. Rather, it means that spoken words are, surprisingly, the least dependable barometer of a person's authentic thoughts, genuine emotions, or true future actions. Words, in essence, are a performance. They are carefully chosen instruments people employ to meticulously manage your perception of them, to sculpt the image they wish to project. Words are uttered to achieve an immediate objective, to secure a desired outcome in a specific moment. Yet, with startling frequency, words bear little resemblance to the actual truth. Reflect for a moment on your own experiences. How many instances can you recall where someone assured you they would undertake a task, only for that promise to dissolve into inaction? How many times did someone declare their profound care for you, only for that person to subsequently vanish from your life? How many promises of fundamental change were made, only for the individual to remain exactly as they were? When these words were spoken, were they outright lies? Perhaps in some cases. However, it's far more probable that in that fleeting moment, they genuinely felt those sentiments. They genuinely intended to fulfill those promises. But as the moment passed, so too did the intensity of the feeling, rendering the words hollow and devoid of lasting meaning. This phenomenon occurs because words are inherently cheap. They carry no intrinsic cost. One can articulate anything, make any grandiose promise, and indeed, most people do. They articulate whatever serves their immediate purpose, to enhance their self-image, to extract a desired concession, or simply to pacify another person and alleviate an uncomfortable situation. The astute Niccolò Machiavelli, centuries ago, keenly grasped this human tendency. He observed that men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone ready to be deceived. What Machiavelli understood was the profound human yearning to believe words, to trust in promises, to accept that when someone speaks, they speak with absolute sincerity. And manipulators, with their predatory instincts, exploit this yearning with devastating effectiveness. They master the art of telling you precisely what you wish to hear, fabricating promises they harbor no genuine intention of honoring. And it works, because the vast majority of people accept words at face value, operating under the naive assumption that if something was spoken, it must, by definition, be true. But this, I assure you, is a fundamentally flawed understanding of how the world truly operates. So, what profound transformation occurs within your perception once you successfully implement this first crucial shift? The change is fundamental. You cease to merely listen to what people articulate, and instead, you begin to observe their actual conduct, their tangible actions. You no longer allow yourself to be swayed or impressed by mere promises, however eloquent. Your focus shifts entirely to discerning consistent patterns of behavior over time. When someone declares they will return your call, you don't passively wait with an assumption of truth. You notice whether they actually do so. When an individual claims to value you, You scrutinize their deeds to see if their actions genuinely reflect that declared esteem. When someone vows to change, you don't simply accept their verbal commitment. You watch to see if actual demonstrable change occurs, or if they merely perpetuate the cycle of empty declarations. When you abandon the naive belief in words alone and instead place your trust in observable behavior, a remarkable clarity descends upon your understanding of the world. The pervasive confusion that once clouded your judgment dissipates. You no longer puzzle over why an individual who professes affection repeatedly inflicts pain upon you. The truth becomes undeniable. Their words are deceptive. Their actions reveal their true indifference. Words articulate one narrative, but actions always reveal the unvarnished truth. Yet there's a deeper, more empowering dimension to this shift that most people fail to grasp. This is the aspect that imbues this transformation with such formidable power. Once you cease to grant credibility to mere words, you become incredibly resistant to manipulation. This is because the vast majority of manipulative tactics are fundamentally verbal in nature. They hinge on grand promises, elaborate explanations, artful justifications, and the insidious act of talking one's way out of responsibility and accountability. If these words hold no sway over you, if you see them as nothing more than noise, then the manipulation utterly fails. Instead of falling prey to verbal trickery, you simply refer to the established pattern of their behavior. You observe what they consistently do, and your decisions are formed exclusively on that concrete evidence. This behavioral-centric approach utterly infuriates manipulators. They are accustomed to their elaborate verbal gymnastics being readily accepted, to their persuasive words effectively achieving their desired outcomes. When they encounter someone who bases their judgment solely on actions, they find themselves utterly disarmed, stripped of their usual power. They can chatter all they wish, their words become inconsequential. Your discerning gaze is fixed on their deeds, and their deeds, without fail, convey everything you truly need to comprehend. Thus, the first pivotal shift. People rarely mean precisely what they say. Your directive is clear. Observe behavior, disregard mere words. The second shift. Everyone acts from self-interest. Once you have genuinely absorbed this first truth, once you have ceased to accept anyone's declarations at face value and instead begun the meticulous process of observing their consistent patterns of behavior, you have successfully embarked upon the initial, crucial stride towards becoming truly, profoundly, and yes, dangerously intelligent. However, merely understanding that people don't always mean what they say is, in itself, insufficient. This partial insight will still leave you grappling with persistent confusion, perpetually questioning the underlying reasons for their actions. You'll still ponder, why do individuals routinely make promises they have no intention of honoring? Why do people so often articulate one thing, yet consistently engage in actions that directly contradict their spoken words? Why do people inflict pain upon those they ostensibly claim to love and cherish? These persistent questions lead us directly to the second transformative shift, an insight so fundamental that, once grasped, it illuminates and explains virtually all facets of human behavior. Be forewarned, however, that this particular truth is often even more challenging to accept, internalize than the first. Here, then, is the profound reality of the second shift. Every single person, without exception, operates fundamentally from a place of self-interest. This is a universal truth, with no exclusions, no deviations. Now, before your natural defenses rise, before you begin to mentally catalogue all the seemingly selfless acts you or acquaintances have performed, or recall individuals you genuinely perceive as altruistic, I urge you to listen carefully and consider my full explanation. I am absolutely not asserting that humanity is inherently evil, nor am I suggesting that people are incapable of caring for others. What I am positing is that, at the very bedrock of every single decision, every choice an individual makes, there exists an underlying, often subconscious calculation. That calculation invariably boils down to the question, what benefit does this action bring to me? Even in moments of profound generosity, even when individuals exhibit immense kindness or engage in significant personal sacrifice, there is always an underlying recompense, a benefit they derive. This benefit might manifest in various forms. Perhaps it's the intrinsic satisfaction of feeling good about oneself, a boost to their self-esteem. It could be the strategic cultivation of a positive reputation, fostering goodwill that might be useful later. It might be the avoidance of uncomfortable feelings of guilt or remorse. Or perhaps more subtly, it involves the creation of an unspoken obligation in the recipient, a future IOU. The crucial point is that there is always something without exception that they gain. This observation is not intended as a cynical criticism of human nature. Rather, it is a straightforward description of how humans are fundamentally wired. We are biologically predisposed for survival, and the imperative of survival inherently dictates the prioritization of our own needs and well-being. Even when we extend assistance to others, we do so because that act of helping in some discernible manner ultimately serves us. It might align with our deeply held moral values, bolstering our sense of integrity. It could enhance our self-image, confirming the kind of person we aspire to be, or it might serve our long-term strategic interests, cultivating alliances or ensuring future support. Regardless of the specific mechanism, the act serves us. Once you truly comprehend this principle, once you genuinely internalize this core truth, a profound clarity will settle upon your understanding of the world. People will no longer appear bewildering or inconsistent. Instead, they become remarkably predictable. Because if you can accurately identify and understand an individual's primary self-interest, you will possess an almost uncanny ability to foresee their actions in virtually every situation. Reflect now on a specific individual in your life who, at some point, caused you deep disappointment. Perhaps it was someone who consistently let you down, or, more painfully, someone who demonstrably prioritized their own needs and desires over yours. At the time, were you utterly surprised by their actions? Did you experience a profound sense of hurt or betrayal? Was your pain perhaps rooted in the belief that they cared for you more deeply than was actually the case? Now, revisit that very same situation, but this time, critically analyze it through the dispassionate lens of self-interest. Ask yourself, what tangible or intangible benefit did they stand to gain by choosing to support or prioritize you in that moment? Conversely, what potential loss or disadvantage did they face by choosing to prioritize themselves? When you meticulously perform this calculation, the logic behind their decision becomes remarkably clear and perfectly rational. They acted in a way that was optimally beneficial for them. This pattern is not an anomaly, it is a consistent truth. Every individual at every juncture invariably does what they perceive to be best for themselves. The hurt you experienced stemmed from your mistaken assumption that they would choose you. But truly, why would they? What was the personal incentive for them to do so? If the honest answer is nothing at all, then it becomes entirely evident, and indeed inevitable, that they would not choose you. This realization is not meant to be a personal indictment. It is simply an acknowledgement of the fundamental operating principle of human beings. Machiavelli, with his characteristic pragmatism, famously observed that men never do good unless necessity drives them to it. His profound meaning was not that people are incapable of moral action, but rather that morality, in and of itself, is often not the primary motivator. Instead, individuals tend to act morally precisely when it benefits them to do so. This might be in response to powerful social pressures, the looming threat of legal repercussions, or when their public reputation and standing are at stake. However, when the watchful eyes of others are absent, when the perceived consequences are negligible or non-existent, when they believe they can evade accountability, the vast majority of people will opt for the course of action that serves their personal interests rather than what is objectively right. And let me be clear, this inclination isn't a testament to inherent wickedness. It is simply a reflection of the human condition. Humans are, by design, self-interested beings. This isn't a flaw in the system, it's a fundamental feature. It is, at its core, the very mechanism of survival. So, with the successful integration of this second pivotal shift into your mindset, what tangible changes will you experience in your interactions with the world? You will quite simply cease to be perpetually surprised by the actions of others. The sting of betrayal will diminish significantly, not because it no longer occurs, but because you will understand its true nature. Betrayal is rarely a personal affront. It is, more accurately, an individual's rational, from their perspective, choice to prioritize their own self-interest above yours. And, given our fundamental human wiring, why wouldn't they? You will discontinue the unrealistic expectation that others will automatically make sacrifices for you, unless, of course, you have clearly established a compelling reason for them to do so, making it demonstrably worth their effort or cost. The naive notion that loyalty is an inherent automatic bond will dissipate. Instead, you will grasp that genuine loyalty in most human relationships endures only as long as it continues to serve the interests of both parties involved. The precise moment it ceases to provide a benefit or serve the purpose of one party, that loyalty predictably dissolves. To some, this perspective might appear profoundly cynical, perhaps even bleak or dark. However, I assure you it is merely profoundly realistic. And once you begin to operate from this clear, unvarnished understanding of human motivation, you will inevitably begin to make vastly superior decisions in your life. You will stop extending trust indiscriminately to individuals who have no discernible incentive or reason to be trustworthy to you. You will no longer be genuinely shocked when people predictably choose to put themselves first. Instead of operating on fragile hopes, you will embark on building robust relationships founded upon concrete mutual benefit. And here lies the truly empowering aspect of this shift. When you fully internalize the understanding that every single person, including yourself, operates from a foundation of self-interest, you will finally shed the debilitating burden of guilt associated with prioritizing your own needs. You will cease to apologize for establishing healthy boundaries. You will stop self-sacrificing for individuals who would demonstrably never extend the same consideration or effort to you. Because at this point, you will recognize that self-interest is not synonymous with selfishness. It is, in its purest form, an imperative for survival. The individuals who are consistently winning in life, who are truly thriving and prospering, understood this fundamental truth a long time ago. They are not idly wondering why their sacrifices aren't appreciated. Instead, they are making deliberate, strategic decisions based on what effectively serves them, and they do so without apology. Precisely because they are acutely aware that everyone else is, implicitly or explicitly, doing the very same thing. They simply possess the honesty to acknowledge this reality. This then constitutes the second pivotal shift. Everyone operates from self-interest. The third shift, fairness is an illusion. Once this profound insight into self-interest truly takes root within you, a remarkable clarity will emerge. People's motivations and actions will suddenly make complete sense. Their behavior will become explicable and coherent. You will finally be liberated from the persistent confusion surrounding why individuals act in the ways they do. However, merely comprehending the pervasive influence of self-interest, while illuminating, still leaves you potentially vulnerable in other crucial aspects of life. You might, for instance, be tempted to conclude, "All right, I understand self-interest, therefore I will simply outwork everyone else. I will strive to be demonstrably superior to all others. I will painstakingly earn every single thing I deserve." And it is this very line of thinking that leads us directly to the third, profoundly unsettling yet utterly essential, mental shift. This is the shift that ruthlessly dismantles the comforting fairy tales and saccharine narratives you were fed during childhood. It is the realization that will force you to confront the harsh truth. The game of life, as it is actually played, is fundamentally rigged. Once you truly internalize this, Once your eyes are open to this reality, there is no returning to a naive belief in concepts like pure meritocracy, inherent justice, or universal fairness. Here, then, is the unequivocal truth. Fairness is a carefully constructed lie, a comforting delusion perpetuated for children. The world, in its raw, unvarnished state, is not fair. It has never been fair, not in any historical epoch, and it will, in all probability, never become fair. Furthermore, the individuals who ultimately achieve significant success are not necessarily those who are inherently the most deserving, the most diligent, or the most morally upright. Rather, they are precisely the individuals who possess the astute understanding of how to effectively win within an inherently unfair system. Take a moment to recall the countless instances in your own experience or in the observations you've made, where a person with demonstrably inferior qualifications was elevated to a position of greater authority or reward, inexplicably leapfrogging over someone far more competent and deserving. Think of every time you witnessed an individual with powerful social connections effortlessly ascend the ladder of success, while another, possessing immense talent and skill, languished in obscurity or struggled relentlessly. Remember those moments when tireless, diligent hard work went utterly unacknowledged and unrewarded, while mere happenstance or sheer luck was lavishly celebrated. In those moments, your immediate, ingrained reaction was likely to dismiss these occurrences as rare exceptions, isolated flukes, glaring instances of unfairness. You probably held on to the comforting belief that eventually true fairness would inevitably prevail and restore balance. However, I must disabuse you of that comforting illusion. These are not exceptions to a rule of fairness, they are the rule. The world, in its uncompromising reality, does not primarily reward sheer hard work alone. Instead, it systematically rewards leverage, the strategic advantage derived from influence, position, or resources. It rewards impeccable timing, the ability to seize opportunities at their most opportune moment. It rewards the fortunate confluence of being in precisely the right place, at the right time, surrounded by the right influential individuals. And, at times, it unequivocally rewards the audacity and ruthlessness to simply take what one desires, without waiting for permission or endorsement. Machiavelli, with his unparalleled understanding of power dynamics, fully comprehended this stark reality. He famously penned the observation that how we live is so different from how we ought to live that he who abandons what is done for what ought to be done will rather learn to bring about his own ruin than his preservation. What he meant with chilling clarity is this: if you insist on playing the game of life according to idealistic rules of how things should operate, rather than the brutal, pragmatic rules of how things actually operate, you are, by definition, destined to lose. Your adherence to an imaginary code will lead to your downfall, not your success. Consider those individuals who perpetually linger in a state of indignant complaint, constantly lamenting, "This isn't fair, this isn't right, this isn't how things should be." These individuals remain perpetually stagnant, frozen in their current circumstances, because they are idly waiting for the world to magically transform into an equitable utopia. They are patiently waiting for their inherent merit to be universally recognized and rewarded. They are holding out for the day when sheer hard work alone will be sufficient to guarantee success. And while they remain in this passive, hopeful posture, countless others are actively engaged in playing the actual game, the relentless game of acquiring and utilizing leverage, the intricate game of cultivating powerful relationships, the astute game of seizing precise timing and fleeting opportunities, and, on occasion, the audacious game of simply taking what they desire without seeking anyone's permission or approval. Reflect honestly on the sheer amount of invaluable energy you may have already squandered, consumed by anger and frustration over perceived unfairness. The simmering resentment over someone else receiving what you believed was rightfully yours. The indignant outrage concerning a broken system or the fervent wish that things should be different. All that emotional expenditure, all that anger, all that resentment has in reality accomplished absolutely nothing. The impersonal system, the world as it truly is utterly indifferent to your personal opinions on its fairness. The system, with brutal efficiency, rewards only those individuals who possess a profound and pragmatic understanding of how it actually functions, not how it theoretically should function. And once you successfully make this third crucial mental shift, once you abandon the idealistic expectation of fairness and instead embrace the raw, unfiltered reality of how things are, you can at long last begin to genuinely win. This liberation occurs because you will no longer be deliberately handicapping yourself with the shackles of should. You will no longer be attempting to play by an imaginary set of rules that simply do not exist in the real world. Instead, your focus will sharpen. You will keenly observe what actions and strategies are actually rewarded, and then, with deliberate intent, you will align your efforts to execute those very actions. This shift from idealistic hope to pragmatic action is the key to unlocking your potential. With the successful adoption of this third pivotal shift, what significant transformations will you observe in your approach to life and work? You will definitively cease the futile exercise of waiting for external circumstances to miraculously become fair. You will abandon the passive expectation that your diligent hard work will, by itself, speak volumes and magically garner the recognition it deserves. The comforting yet dangerously misleading belief that simply being exceptionally proficient at your job is sufficient for advancement will be completely discarded. Instead, you will gain a profound understanding of the multifaceted requirements for true success. You recognize the absolute necessity of cultivating leverage, that strategic advantage of influence and positioning. You acknowledge the critical importance of visibility, ensuring your contributions are seen and acknowledged by the right people. You comprehend the power of relationships, forging connections with those who hold sway. You appreciate the crucial role of timing, seizing opportunities at their most opportune moment. And sometimes, you will recognize the need to be willing to undertake actions that, while not illegal or immoral, might be perceived by others as unfair, purely because they are strategically effective. This might manifest in concrete ways, actively taking credit for your accomplishments rather than passively hoping someone else will notice them. Proactively building meaningful relationships with key decision-makers instead of naively assuming that sheer merit will be enough. Having the courage to leave a job that consistently undervalues you rather than clinging to a misplaced hope that your loyalty will eventually be rewarded. In essence, you will start playing the game that actually exists rather than the idealistic game you wish existed. And here is a critical truth that is seldom spoken aloud. The individuals who occupy the pinnacles of society, those endowed with vast wealth, formidable power, and extensive influence, are all acutely aware that the world is not fair. They have possessed this understanding since the very beginning of their journeys. This fundamental insight is precisely why they consistently win. They are not constrained by, nor do they play by, the abstract rules of fairness. Instead, they operate strictly according to the unyielding rules of reality. And reality, it must be stated, is often ruthless. Reality unfailingly rewards leverage. Reality rewards the uncanny ability to be in the perfect place at the perfect time, surrounded by the perfect influential people. Reality generously rewards those who are decisive enough to seize opportunities that others, bound by excessive principles or naive hopes, are simply unwilling or unable to grasp. You have a choice. You can continue to sit on the sidelines, labeling these realities as unfair and lamenting that that's not how it should be. Or you can choose to courageously accept that this is how it is and, armed with this knowledge, begin to actively play the game that truly exists. Because merely complaining about unfairness is an utterly impotent act. It alters nothing. But understanding how to win within an inherently unfair system changes absolutely everything for you. The fourth shift: rules are not universal. So, to summarize, that concludes our discussion of the third profound shift. The core insight here is that fairness is an illusion, a convenient fabrication. The world, in its uncompromising functionality, rewards strategic leverage, impeccable timing, and at times, a necessary degree of ruthlessness, rather than simply pure merit or inherent deservingness. And once you genuinely accept this truth, once you integrate it into the deepest layers of your understanding, you will cease the unproductive expenditure of your precious energy on bitterness and resentment. Instead, you will redirect that revitalized energy towards the proactive and strategic positioning of yourself for success. However, even a comprehensive understanding that the world is fundamentally unfair does not fully equip you for the next layer of reality. You might still harbor the lingering thought, "All right, I acknowledge the world is unfair, but surely, at the very least, everyone operates under the same fundamental set of rules. We all, presumably, must adhere to the laws of the land. We all face the same basic constraints and limitations." And it is precisely this persistent assumption that leads us directly to the fourth, equally critical mental shift. This particular insight reveals a truth even more disquieting. Not only is the world inherently unfair, but different individuals are in fact playing entirely disparate games, each governed by its own distinct set of regulations. Here, then, is the stark reality. The rules, as we commonly understand them, do not apply equally to everyone. There exists one set of rules meticulously crafted for the average, regular person, and an entirely separate, more flexible, and often unspoken set of rules reserved for those who wield significant power. And these two sets of rules are fundamentally and irreconcilably different. For the average, everyday individual, adherence to rules is an absolute necessity. They are expected and indeed compelled to diligently pay their taxes. They must arrive punctually for their appointments and obligations. They are expected to maintain a facade of politeness and decorum in all interactions. They must humbly request permission before undertaking certain actions. They are taught to patiently wait their turn in line, in life. Should they transgress these established rules, the consequences are swift and often severe. They face termination from their employment. They are arrested and prosecuted if they violate the law. The societal system, with its myriad enforcement mechanisms, constantly and rigorously applies these rules to the ordinary populace. However, for powerful individuals, the narrative is dramatically different. Powerful people routinely and openly flout rules without significant repercussions. They cut corners with impunity, disregard regulations that bind others, and cleverly bend the very laws that are supposed to apply to everyone. They make and break promises with casual indifference, and the most striking aspect? Often, absolutely nothing happens to them. This is because the fundamental purpose of these rules is not to universally constrain everyone, but rather to control and manage the behavior of the powerless. They are designed as a mechanism for societal order, for those who lack the means to challenge them, not as an equalizing force. Consider the countless scandals that have permeated public discourse throughout history. Wealthy elites who systematically evade their tax obligations, prominent politicians who brazenly lie under oath, corporate CEOs who flagrantly violate labor laws, exploiting their workforce. What were the actual tangible consequences for these powerful transgressors? What really happened? In many cases, they might have incurred a monetary fine, a penalty that often amounted to a mere fraction of the illicit gains they accumulated. At best, they might have received a metaphorical slap on the wrist, a mild reprimand quickly forgotten. More often than not, they faced absolutely no consequences whatsoever. This disparity exists because the entire system is meticulously designed to penalize those who cannot afford the most astute legal counsel, those who don't have connections, and those who possess no significant leverage to negotiate their way out of trouble. Conversely, if you command substantial wealth, if you wield considerable power, if you have cultivated the precisely right relationships, then the rules transform from rigid mandates into mere suggestions. They become negotiable obstacles that can be circumvented or even entirely ignored, particularly if the potential benefit far outweighs the perceived risk of mild inconvenience. Machiavelli, ever the astute observer of power, famously articulated that a truly wise prince cannot and should not keep his word when such observance may be turned against him, and when
the reasons that caused him to pledge it no longer exist.
What he conveyed with this stark statement is a profound truth about those in positions of authority. Powerful individuals do not adhere to rules out of some inherent moral obligation or consistent principle. Rather, they follow rules only for as long as those rules actively serve their interests or provide them with an advantage. The moment a rule ceases to be beneficial or actively begins to work against them, they unhesitatingly disregard it. They break rules when it serves their agenda, and critically, they possess the vast resources, influence and connections necessary to successfully evade the consequences that would befall ordinary citizens. This isn't some clandestine conspiracy or a hidden secret known only to a select few. This is simply the fundamental operational dynamic of power itself. Those who possess power are invariably the ones who craft the rules of society. And in their meticulous drafting, they ensure that these rules are constructed in a manner that effectively constrains and regulates the behavior of everyone else, while simultaneously incorporating intricate loopholes, exceptions, and advantages that always benefit themselves. This pattern is observable in virtually every system, every society, and every hierarchical structure, from the smallest organizations to the largest nations. So, what profound and practical changes will you experience once you integrate this fourth mental shift? You will cease the self-defeating practice of deliberately handicapping yourself by adhering to rules
that powerful individuals consistently disregard with impunity.
You will stop being the sole participant attempting to play fair in a competitive arena where nearly everyone else is operating by a different, less scrupulous code. You will shed the erroneous belief that meticulously following all the rules is the defining characteristic that separates you from bad people. Because, in reality, the individuals who are consistently achieving victory are not adhering to every single rule. They are instead shrewdly prioritizing and following only the rules that truly matter, the ones carrying actual, enforceable consequences. Simultaneously, they are adeptly bending or outright breaking the rules that are inconsequential or easily circumvented. This crucial insight does not advocate for criminality or immoral behavior. What it does mean is that you must abandon your naivety regarding the true nature of the game you are actually participating in. You must stop believing that merely being a diligent rule follower automatically confers virtue. In reality, it often simply renders you more controllable, more easily managed by those who understand the system. And here lies the most formidable and potentially dangerous aspect of this particular shift. Once you clearly perceive that the rules are not applied equally across the board, you are confronted with a stark and unavoidable choice. Do you persist in rigidly following rules that demonstrably disadvantage you, while others around you are unhesitatingly cutting corners and seeking advantages? Or do you begin to adopt a strategic mindset, thoughtfully deciding which rules serve your purpose to follow and which rules can be judiciously bent or navigated around? Most people find themselves utterly paralyzed by this question. They desperately cling to the comforting self-image of being good people, and good people, they believe, always follow rules. Yet Machiavelli would, with his characteristic bluntness, inform you that such good people often finish last. This is not because being good is inherently flawed, but because attempting to play by an outdated or selectively applied rulebook, while others play by a more pragmatic one, is simply foolish, a recipe for inevitable defeat. The rules fundamentally exist to control you, not to establish universal fairness, nor to guarantee justice. Their primary function is to maintain control, and once you confront this stark truth, there is no going back to blindly, unthinkingly adhering to every single one of them. The fifth shift, your closest enemies. So, to recap the profound insight of the fourth shift, the rules of the game are not universally applied. Those wielding significant power routinely disregard them without facing any meaningful repercussions. Once this reality becomes undeniably clear to you, you will understand that rigidly following every single rule is, in essence, simply volunteering yourself to be controlled and constrained by a system that offers no reciprocal benefits. However, even with this understanding that the game is played with different rulebooks for different players, you are still not fully
Prepared for the next equally unsettling mental shift.
because even if you now grasp that the world is inherently unfair and its systems are often rigged, you might still cling to the comforting belief that you can implicitly trust those in your immediate circle. You might still believe you possess an infallible ability to identify your true friends, to discern precisely who is genuinely on your side and who is not. This persistent assumption brings us directly to the fifth crucial shift, an insight that will compel you to critically reevaluate every single person in your life. Here, then, is the stark revelation. Your most dangerous enemies often present themselves as your closest friends. The individuals who are most likely to inflict significant harm upon you are rarely strangers lurking in the shadows. They are not easily identifiable, overt adversaries. On the contrary, they are typically the people who smile warmly at you, the ones who reassuringly declare they have your back, the individuals who meticulously act as if they genuinely care about your well-being. This insidious dynamic is precisely how betrayal functions. You cannot, by definition, be betrayed by an overt enemy. An enemy's hostile intent is clear. Betrayal, in its most devastating form, can only ever be perpetrated by someone in whom you have placed your implicit trust, someone allowed into your inner circle. The individuals who harbor predatory intentions, those who seek to exploit your resources, fiercely compete against you, or systematically undermine your efforts, are acutely aware of this. Fundamental truth about betrayal. Recognizing that trust is the gateway to vulnerability, they strategically maneuver to get close to you. They adopt a facade of warmth and friendliness, meticulously cultivating an appearance of alliance. During this proximity, they diligently study your vulnerabilities, meticulously cataloging your insecurities, fears, and sensitive points. They then patiently bide their time, waiting for the most opportune moment. A moment of weakness, a moment of distraction, or a moment when your guard is lowered. And then they strike. The impact is often devastating because you were utterly blindsided, operating under the deeply mistaken assumption that they were a loyal member of your team. Consider for a moment every painful instance where you have been backstabbed. Recall every situation where someone you had placed your faith in, someone you implicitly trusted, abruptly turned against you. Were these individuals obvious, declared enemies before their betrayal? Almost certainly not. On the contrary, they were likely friends, trusted colleagues, individuals you had genuinely helped, people you confided in. They were individuals whom you profoundly believed were loyal to you, and then, without warning, they proved not to be. Your shock and hurt stemmed from your inability to foresee their treachery. Yet, here is the crucial, often overlooked aspect of such betrayals. The subtle warning signs were invariably present. They were always there, perhaps faint, perhaps disguised, but detectable. The reason you failed to perceive them was not their absence, but your subconscious reluctance to acknowledge them. To see those signs would have necessitated the uncomfortable and painful admission that someone you cherished and trusted was, in fact, a potential threat. And the vast majority of people, driven by a desire for comfort and avoiding difficult truths, would much rather remain willfully blind than accept such a harsh reality. However, clinging to such blindness offers no protection whatsoever. It merely transforms you into an even easier target, perfectly vulnerable to the very machinations you refuse to see. Machiavelli, in his timeless observations, underscored the fundamental human inclination to trust, noting that men are so simple that the deceiver will always find someone ready to be deceived. His profound point was this: people inherently want to trust others. They harbor a deep-seated desire to believe that their friends are genuinely loyal and supportive. They want to believe that individuals are being forthright and honest with them in their interactions. And it is precisely this fundamental human desire for trust that deceivers, with their insidious intent, skillfully exploit. They weaponize your inherent willingness to believe. They deliberately seek proximity to you, cultivating a relationship that appears friendly and supportive. In this position of closeness, they meticulously gather sensitive information. They learn your deepest secrets, identify your most cherished values, and, most critically, pinpoint your vulnerabilities and weaknesses. Then, armed with this comprehensive dossier of personal information, they ruthlessly employ it. They might use it to extract resources from you, to unfairly compete against you, or to subtly and effectively sabotage your efforts and reputation. And throughout this entire treacherous process, they maintain a facade of warmth and camaraderie. They continue to smile, to act as if they are your staunch ally, because they understand that this friendly disguise is the most potent and effective camouflage for their true intentions. So, with the integration of this fifth profound shift, what tangible changes will you observe in your approach to relationships and trust? You will definitively cease the naive act of trusting individuals simply because they exhibit superficial politeness or kindness towards you. You will no longer automatically assume that someone who greets you with a smile is genuinely aligned with your interests. Instead, your focus will sharpen, and you will begin to meticulously observe their behavioral patterns over time. You'll ask yourself, does this person genuinely celebrate your triumphs and successes, or do they subtly seem perturbed or bothered by them? Do they offer support only when it requires absolutely no effort or cost from their side? Or do they stand by you, even when it is inconvenient or disadvantageous for them to do so? Does this individual meticulously guard your confidences, or do your secrets somehow consistently find their way into the public sphere, often in a manner that ultimately harms you? When you abandon the superficial acceptance of mere friendliness and instead begin to scrutinize for concrete evidence of genuine, enduring loyalty, a stark clarity will emerge. You will clearly discern who among your acquaintances is truly authentic and sincere, and who is merely engaging in a performance, playing a role for their own strategic benefit. And the uncomfortable truth, I must emphasize, is that the vast majority of people fall into the latter category. They are performing. And here lies perhaps the most challenging and potentially painful aspect of this particular shift. You will come to the sobering realization that you cannot, in fact, genuinely trust most people. Not because humanity is inherently evil or universally malicious. It is because, when circumstances become critical, when it truly matters, the vast majority of individuals will invariably choose their own self-interest over yours. Most people are perfectly capable of smiling warmly at you, while simultaneously engaging in subtle or even overt competition against you. Most people will maintain a facade of friendship only until that friendship begins to incur a personal cost or disadvantage for them. Once you genuinely comprehend this dynamic, you will become profoundly selective about whom you bestow your trust upon. You will exercise extreme caution regarding the sensitive information you choose to share. You will become exceptionally discerning about who is permitted to enter your inner circle, understanding with chilling clarity that proximity in this context inherently carries a risk. It is danger. The closer an individual is to you, the greater their potential capacity to inflict harm. And the harsh reality is that most people, despite their outward appearances, are simply not worthy of that level of intimate proximity. The majority exist as friendly enemies, perpetually smiling while patiently waiting for an opportune moment to advance their own agenda, potentially at your expense. The sixth shift: weakness invites attack. So, to succinctly summarize the fifth crucial shift, your most formidable adversaries often masquerade as your allies. The individuals who possess the greatest capacity and likelihood to betray you are precisely those who currently reside within your trusted inner circle. And once this stark reality is genuinely perceived, you will, by necessity, become incredibly vigilant and judicious about who you permit into your life. However, merely understanding that the people surrounding you might harbor covert threats is still not a complete safeguard. You might then naturally conclude, all right, I'll simply cultivate an impenetrable facade of strength. I'll become resilient and tough. I will resolutely refuse to display any form of weakness. And it is this very line of thinking that ushers us into the sixth pivotal shift, the brutal and uncompromising truth about the consequences of revealing vulnerability. This insight is, indeed, exceptionally harsh and unforgiving. Here it is: weakness inevitably invites attack. The prevailing societal narrative often espouses that being vulnerable is a profound act of courage, that openly sharing your struggles makes you more authentically human, and that seeking assistance,
Admirable display of strength.
in an idealized perfect world, one devoid of malice and competition, perhaps these noble sentiments would hold true. However, we do not inhabit such a world. This is a reality teeming with opportunistic individuals, with metaphorical predators, and predators by their very nature do not respond to vulnerability with empathy or respect. On the contrary, they perceive it as an opening, an exploitable advantage. When you choose to display weakness, you are not, as commonly believed, fostering deeper human connection. Instead, you are, quite literally, painting a conspicuous target upon your own back. You are revealing to others the precise points where you are most susceptible, indicating exactly where they can strike to inflict maximum damage. You are willingly furnishing them with invaluable intelligence, a detailed blueprint on how to effectively hurt you, how to subtly manipulate your emotions, or how to exert control over your actions. And let me be unequivocally clear. While not every person will seize upon this information, a significant number of individuals, those with opportunistic or predatory instincts, will absolutely, without hesitation, weaponize that vulnerability against you. Recall a specific instance in your past when you confided in someone about a deep-seated fear or a profound insecurity. And then, at a later, more contentious moment, perhaps during a heated argument or a particularly challenging period, that very same vulnerability was ruthlessly deployed against you. They knew precisely how to wound you because
You yourself had revealed the exact nature of that wound.
you unwittingly handed them the weapon. You exposed your tender, soft spots, and they diligently catalogued that sensitive information, storing it away until the opportune moment arose to exploit it. This is the inevitable outcome of being vulnerable with the wrong kind of individuals. Your genuine honesty transforms into ammunition in their arsenal. Your openness transmutes into a glaring weakness, and in a fiercely competitive world, weakness, almost without exception, is punished. This punitive action isn't necessarily driven by malevolence or an inherent desire to be evil. Rather, it stems from a pragmatic, strategic mindset. If an individual can secure an advantage, however slight, by exploiting your vulnerabilities, a significant portion of them will, purely out of self-interest, choose to do so. Machiavelli, in his enduring treatise on political power, famously asserted that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. His profound meaning, when stripped of its historical context, remains strikingly relevant. People, at a fundamental level, inherently respect strength far more deeply than they respect vulnerability. When individuals perceive you as someone to be genuinely feared, not through brutality but through a reputation for unwavering strength and decisive action, when they know with certainty that crossing your boundaries or challenging you will inevitably entail significant consequences, they will, by instinct, treat you with extreme caution and deference. They will
meticulously consider their actions,
thinking twice, even thrice, before contemplating any form of betrayal. They will not dare to test your boundaries or challenge your authority. Conversely, when people conclude that you are weak, when they perceive that you lack the capacity or willingness to retaliate, when they believe you will simply absorb any slight or offense and continue to maintain a pleasant demeanor, they lose all incentive to treat you with respect or consideration. In such a scenario, weakness becomes an open invitation for disrespect. It actively encourages exploitation. It overtly invites attack. While it is true that not every single person will behave in this opportunistic manner, a sufficient number of individuals will, necessitating an extremely cautious and strategic approach to your interactions with the world. So, with the successful integration of this sixth profound shift, what concrete alterations will you observe in your behavior and interactions? You will immediately cease the habit of oversharing personal details. You will stop broadcasting your problems and challenges to every willing ear. You will abandon the futile quest for sympathy from others. Instead, you will internalize the stark truth that the vast majority of people are fundamentally indifferent to your struggles. At best, they are disinterested, and at worst, they are meticulously cataloging that information, storing it away for potential future leverage against you. Consequently, you will adopt a more guarded demeanor. You will reserve the sharing of your genuine struggles only for
those select few individuals who have demonstrably proven over an extended period that they will not weaponize that sensitive information against you.
This, you will find, is an exceptionally small and exclusive group. For the overwhelming majority of your interactions, you will consciously project an image of unwavering strength. You will showcase your competence and capability. You will subtly, yet unequivocally, communicate that challenging you or overstepping your boundaries is a decidedly unwise course of action. This is not driven by malice or a desire to be unkind, but by a profound understanding that in a world populated by opportunistic individuals, presenting oneself as vulnerable prey inevitably leads to being exploited. Here's how this critical shift manifests in practical, everyday scenarios. At your workplace, you will refrain from openly complaining about difficulties or setbacks. Instead, you will quietly and efficiently resolve them behind the scenes. You will not confide in others about your personal insecurities. Rather, you will address and work on them in the privacy of your own efforts. You will not publicly broadcast your failures. Instead, you will extract valuable lessons from them in silence, without exposing your vulnerabilities. This is because every single time you publicly display weakness, you inadvertently diminish your own status. You actively reduce your perceived value in the eyes of others. You hand a distinct advantage to your competitors. You effectively paint yourself as an inviting target. The individuals who are consistently achieving success, the ones who are genuinely thriving and flourishing, intuitively understand this crucial dynamic. They meticulously guard their personal struggles, keeping them private. They project an image of strength and capability in public. This is not because they are immune to challenges or hardships, but because they are acutely aware that openly displaying their struggles is a perilous and self-sabotaging endeavor. The seventh shift: you're always playing the game. So, to recap the sixth profound shift, weakness invariably invites attack. The world, in its often harsh reality, does not reward vulnerability. Instead, it tends to punish it. And once this stark truth is integrated into your consciousness, you will become incredibly meticulous and cautious about what information you choose to reveal, and to whom you choose to reveal it. However, even with a comprehensive understanding of all six of these transformative shifts, even with the clarity to perceive precisely how the world truly operates, there remains one final, supremely important shift. This is the biggest one of all, the singular insight that seamlessly ties together every preceding truth. It is the shift that ultimately determines whether you remain a passive victim of these unvarnished realities or evolve into an individual who masterfully employs these very realities to achieve victory. This is the critical demarcation, the mental leap that differentiates those who merely understand the rules of the game from those who actively and effectively play the game. Here, then, is the ultimate revelation. You are, irrevocably, participating in a game, regardless of whether you consciously choose to play or not. Some individuals harbor the comforting yet deluded belief that by consciously opting out of playing games, by refusing to engage in strategic thinking, by disavowing competition, they somehow elevate themselves above the fray. They convince themselves they are not playing dirty, not being manipulative, merely striving to be authentic and hoping that authenticity alone will suffice. But here is the brutal, undeniable truth. You are, in fact, always in the game, whether you actively choose to be a player or not. While you might be contemplating non-participation, others are actively engaged. Other individuals are diligently playing the game. They are being profoundly strategic in their actions. They are meticulously positioning themselves for advantage. They are forging powerful alliances, subtly undermining their competitors, and decisively seizing every available opportunity. If you, by choice or by oversight, are not actively engaging in these very behaviors, you are not merely remaining neutral. You are, by default, losing. Because a refusal to actively participate does not, under any circumstances, remove you from the arena of the game. Instead, it merely relegates you to the unfortunate status of a passive piece on the board, rather than an active player. Consider your own professional environment, your workplace. Do you genuinely believe that the individuals consistently receiving promotions and advancing in their careers are solely those who simply perform their work with the utmost diligence and then passively hope their efforts will be recognized? Or, more realistically, are they the individuals who proactively ensure their accomplishments are conspicuously seen by the right people? Are they the ones who assiduously cultivate meaningful relationships with key decision-makers? Are they the ones who strategically position themselves for emerging opportunities, making deliberate, calculated moves? The answer is clear. They are playing the game. And if you are not actively playing, then you automatically become the very person they are playing against. You become the individual who is consistently overlooked for advancement, the one who is repeatedly blindsided by unexpected setbacks, the one who perpetually grapples with confusion, wondering why things never seem to work out favorably, despite your conviction that you did everything right. You did indeed do everything right, but only according to a set of rules that you imagined existed. Those, however, are not the actual rules of engagement in the real world. The undeniable actual rules of engagement are stark and uncompromising. You must either be strategically proactive or you will inevitably be used by others. You must actively play the game or you will be reduced to a mere pawn in someone else's overarching strategy. Machiavelli, with his characteristic wisdom, famously counseled that one must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. His profound meaning here is that effective navigation of the world demands the integration of two distinct yet complementary forms of intelligence. Firstly, you require the keen, discerning intellect of the fox, the ability to clearly perceive the intricate game being played, to recognize the subtle traps laid, to understand the nuanced manipulations at work, and to identify the underlying strategies being employed by others. This is the foxy intelligence that allows you to see through deception and understand complex dynamics. Secondly, you need to embody the formidable strength and fierce determination of the lion, to be robust enough, assertive enough, and strategically astute enough to avoid becoming a passive victim of those very traps and manipulations. This is the leonine courage that enables you to protect your interests and assert your will. It is insufficient to merely be intelligent, to simply possess the capacity to observe and understand what is transpiring around you. You must also cultivate the willingness to actively engage, to fight back when necessary, to play your own game with purpose, and when warranted, to strategically employ the very same tactics and strategies that might be used against you. Because if you merely perceive the intricacies of the game, but stubbornly refuse to participate, you are still unequivocally destined to lose. The only difference is that you will be losing with your eyes wide open, fully aware of your own defeat. So, with the successful integration of this seventh and final pivotal shift, what profound and transformative changes will you observe in your approach to life? You will, at long last, cease the self-deceptive pretense that you are not engaged in a perpetual competition. You will abandon the dangerously naive notion that merely being nice and working hard constitutes a viable or effective strategy for success in the real world. Instead, you will begin to operate with deliberate intention and strategic foresight. You will consciously begin to consider how you are perceived by others, meticulously evaluating the impression you make. You will become acutely aware of the nature and utility of the relationships you are cultivating, actively building connections that serve your objectives. You will proactively identify and strategically position yourself for future opportunities, rather than passively waiting for them to materialize. In essence, you will begin playing the complex, multi-layered game of chess, while the vast majority of others around you remain stuck playing a simpler game of checkers. Your thinking will extend 3, 4, even 5 moves ahead, anticipating consequences and counter moves. You will grasp that every single interaction, every decision, every conversation either incrementally strengthens your strategic position or subtly, yet surely, weakens it. You will definitively cease to be passive. You will stop merely waiting for events to unfold around you. Instead, you will become the proactive architect of your own destiny, initiating actions and making things happen. This is not about aggression or adopting a false persona, but about engaging with the world in a deeply strategic and authentic manner. You will internalize the undeniable truth that you are, irrevocably, participating in a game. And all games, by their very nature, produce winners and losers. Furthermore, you will understand that a refusal to participate in this game is not an act of defiance or neutrality. It is, quite simply, a deliberate choice to lose. And now, we arrive at the most profoundly liberating aspect of this ultimate shift. Once you courageously accept the undeniable truth that you are always and inevitably engaged in a game, you will finally shed the debilitating burden of guilt associated with playing strategically. You will cease to mistakenly believe that strategically positioning yourself for success somehow renders you a bad person. You will stop offering apologies for the rightful prioritization of your own well-being and aspirations, because you will recognize with startling clarity that every single person around you is, implicitly or explicitly, doing precisely the same thing. The only difference is that they are simply unwilling to admit it. They are actively playing the game, yet simultaneously maintaining an elaborate pretense that they are not playing at all. And that fundamental dishonesty, that self-deception, ultimately makes them liars to themselves and to others. You, however, having fully integrated these shifts, will be playing the game with unflinching honesty. Honest with yourself about your intentions and your actions. And this precisely is what makes you truly dangerous. You are dangerous because you are no longer lost in a fog of confusion. You are dangerous because you are not plagued by internal conflict or cognitive dissonance. You see the entire board laid out before you with crystalline clarity. You perceive every player's intentions and positions. You anticipate their strategic moves, and crucially, you make your decisions based squarely on what actually works in the real world, rather than clinging to idealistic notions of what you wish would work. This pragmatic clarity is your ultimate power. So, this then completes the 7th and final transformative shift. You are inextricably involved in a game, regardless of whether you consciously choose to participate or not. And refusing to play simply means that other individuals will, by default, be playing you, using you as a pawn in their own strategies. Once you truly internalize this profound truth, once this reality becomes an undeniable part of your worldview, there is no reverting to a state of passivity. You cannot return to idly hoping that circumstances will miraculously align in your favor. You are now compelled to become an active player. You must embrace a strategic mindset. You must meticulously consider the specific game you find yourself in, and critically, how to effectively win it. Because the only alternative to this active engagement is to spend your entire existence in a state of perpetual confusion, endlessly wondering why everyone else seems to be forging ahead and achieving success, while you remain stuck in a static, unfulfilled state. And the answer to that profound question, once understood through these shifts, is disarmingly simple. They are actively playing the game, and you are not. Games, by their inherent design, do not reward individuals who stubbornly refuse to participate. They unequivocally reward those who play, and play well. So, having journeyed through these profound insights, you now possess all 7 pivotal shifts. Allow me to concisely reiterate them for your complete assimilation. People don't mean what they say. Always prioritize observing tangible behavior over mere spoken words. Everyone operates from self-interest. Understand that every individual, including yourself, is fundamentally driven by their own perceived advantage. Fairness is a lie. Discard the illusion of universal fairness. The world rewards leverage, timing, and strategic ruthlessness, not inherent merit. The rules don't apply to everyone. Recognize that powerful individuals routinely break rules without consequence, and blindly following every rule merely makes you controllable. Your enemies pretend to be friends. Be acutely aware that betrayal most often comes from those you trust. Exercise extreme caution in who you allow into your inner circle. Weakness invites attack. Never openly display vulnerability. In a competitive world, it is exploited, not respected. Project strength and competence. You're in a game whether you play or not. Accept that life is a strategic arena. Refusing to play means becoming a piece in someone else's game. Play actively and strategically. These 7 profound and transformative shifts have, over the course of the past 30 minutes, irrevocably altered the very landscape of your cognitive understanding. You now perceive the world through an entirely new lens, one sharpened by raw reality. Your perception of other people has fundamentally changed, stripped of naive assumptions. Even your understanding of yourself has undergone a significant re-evaluation. And the crucial point is this: there is no reversing this process. You cannot unlearn what you have now learned. You cannot revert to your former state of unquestioning naivety. And here is a vital, often melancholic truth that you must internalize. This newfound knowledge, this piercing clarity, will inevitably lead to a sense of loneliness. As you navigate the world, you will observe those around you and come to the stark realization that the vast majority of people simply do not perceive what you now see so clearly. Most individuals are still operating under the weight of those comforting, yet ultimately misleading lies. They persist in believing that people's words are a direct reflection of their intentions. They continue to believe in the inherent fairness of the world. They still think that diligently following every rule is a sufficient path to success. They genuinely believe their friends are truly loyal and dependable. They remain convinced that openly displaying weakness fosters genuine connection. They still cling to the illusion that they are somehow not participants in a competitive game, and frustratingly, you will find it nearly impossible to articulate or explain these profound truths to them, because fundamentally, they are not ready to hear it. They actively resist seeing it. They prefer the comfort of their illusions, the security of their long-held fairy tales. And should you attempt to gently awaken them from their self-imposed slumber, they will, in all likelihood, brand you as cynical. They will label you as dark or negative. This is because, to those who cling desperately to their blindness, the clear-eyed perception of reality inevitably appears as negativity. But let me assure you, you are not negative. You are instead profoundly realistic. You are not cynical. You are, unequivocally, well-informed and discerning. You are not dark. You are, in fact, truly dangerous. And dangerous is precisely the state of being you now need to embody. Because being dangerous in this context signifies an unassailable immunity. You cannot be effectively lied to. You cannot be subtly manipulated. You cannot, by any conventional means, be controlled. You now possess the extraordinary ability to see the entire game board with crystalline clarity. You perceive every player's intentions and positions, you anticipate their strategic moves. And now, armed with this formidable insight, you are presented with a pivotal choice. Will you primarily deploy this potent knowledge to merely protect yourself from the machinations of others? Or will you strategically leverage it to actively pursue and achieve victory? Will your approach be predominantly defensive, simply avoiding the pitfalls? Or will you adopt an offensive stance, proactively shaping the dynamics to your advantage? Will you merely learn to avoid the traps that others set, or will you, with strategic intent, begin to set some of your own? The specific path you choose is entirely yours to determine. However, one thing is irrevocably certain. You cannot revert to a state of not knowing that these profound shifts have occurred within your mind. Your brain has been fundamentally altered. You are now undeniably, dangerously smart. So, with all these insights now firmly in your grasp, I present you with a direct challenge. I urge you to meticulously examine your current life situation, right now, through the sharpened lens of these 7 transformative shifts. Honestly ask yourself these penetrating questions. Who in your immediate circle consistently says one thing, yet demonstrably does another? Identify those whose words and actions are in perpetual conflict. Who in your life is operating exclusively from a foundation of pure self-interest, all while skillfully feigning genuine care or concern for your well-being? Unmask the hidden agendas. In which areas of your life are you still stubbornly clinging to an expectation of fairness, a concept that simply does not exist in that particular context? Pinpoint where your idealism is costing you. What specific rules are you rigorously adhering to, rules that virtually everyone else around you is openly or subtly breaking without consequence? Realize where your strict adherence is a handicap. Who in your life is meticulously pretending to be a friend but is, in reality, a strategic competitor, vying for the same resources or opportunities? Distinguish genuine allies from covert rivals. Where are you, currently exhibiting vulnerabilities or weaknesses that are actively being exploited by others, perhaps even those you trust? Identify the chinks in your armor. And finally, what crucial game are you undeniably a part of, yet have stubbornly refused to actively play, thereby allowing others to dictate the terms and outcomes? Answer these questions with brutal, unflinching honesty, for the insights they reveal will precisely illuminate why you are currently in your present circumstances, and more importantly, what specific concrete changes you must implement to reach your desired future. And if these 7 profound shifts have indeed resonated with you, if you genuinely perceive the world through a radically different lens now compared to just 30 minutes ago, then I invite you to share your realization. Type, "I see it now," in the comments section below. Let us discover how many individuals among us are truly prepared to cease being passive pieces on the board and instead rise to become active, strategic players. Let us see how many are ready to shed the burdensome cloak of naivety and embrace the potent mantle of being dangerous in the truest sense. Because the world, in its current state, does not require more merely nice people. What it desperately needs are more individuals who possess the clarity to see things as they truly are, who comprehend the intricate, unwritten rules of how things actually operate, and who are strategic enough to not just survive, but to triumph spectacularly in a game that was, from its very inception, subtly rigged against them. That, precisely, is the essence of being dangerously smart. And if you have remained with me through this entire journey, you are now one of us. Welcome to the challenging yet profoundly empowering experience of seeing clearly. It may be a lonely path, but it is undeniably a powerful one. And do not forget to immediately proceed to the next video. It contains information that is crucial, far more vital than you might currently imagine. I will see you there.